Good evening.
Hi Ramesh ji, how are you? Joe, how are you? Yeah.
मिहिर भर जी नमस्कार।
नमस्कार।
कैसे हैं सर आप?
बस ठीक है, आपकी मेहरबानी। This is a very good initiative. I am very intrigued by this very useful idea. Yeah. I was worried I may get late, but actually I reached on time. So
yeah, you're on time. Thank you for that. You had some problem in logging in?
No, link, I think the link, there's something in my computer which if it's
Okay,
a old
okay.
link, then
Okay.
it asks for again. I think it's a safety measure, I don't know.
Okay, okay. We will start in just a minute.
Yeah, very well, I'm ready.
1 minute.
I'll just put off the. Namaste, Dr. I.P. Varghese. Yeah.
Varghese sir, mic mute sir.
Okay, namaste sir, nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you, but I could, though it was muted, I could hear you very well.
that is reading the mind.
Right. Sir Sugana, how are you, sir?
Ella fine. ഇത്തിരി നാളായി കണ്ടിട്ട്.
അതെ ഒത്തിരിയായി. ഇന്ന് വർക്കിംഗ് ഡേ ആയതുകൊണ്ട് ചെറിയൊരു സ്റ്റാർട്ടിംഗ് ട്രബിൾ ഉണ്ടെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു അല്ലേ ജോ?
നമുക്ക് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യാം. 7:04 ആയില്ല. Shall we start? Okay. So hello everyone and good evening. Welcome to this second meeting of social workers in disaster risk reduction. We are very happy to have you all with us this evening. Maybe due to the working day and the time, perhaps some are yet to join. I hope they will come in soon. However, as we have announced the time as 7, let us start the meeting. I request Ramesh, who is the director of Foundation for Development Action, to deliver the welcome address, and then we will go ahead.
Thank you, Joe. Ellarkum namaskaram, good evening. As Joe said that this is our second program, and we are having somewhat, we have having discussion with experts who are working in disaster risk reduction area. So, and today's topic is, as you have seen our banner, enhancing community resilience as key to disasters risk reduction. So today we have two eminent personalities with us who will share their great ideas, their experiences across India and across even international experience today we are going to hear. So let me first welcome Mihir Bhatt sir. Dr. Mihir Bhatt is the director of All India Disaster Management Institute. It's an Ahmedabad, Gujarat-based organization, NGO, and sir is working in that organization since 1995. And he has worked over 89 districts and 60 cities across India and 9 countries. And his areas of expertise is poverty alleviation, climate change and conflict-related risks, and building resilience with the primary stakeholders, which means women, migrant labor, tribal leaders, and most importantly, he has worked extensively with the children. So, and he is also a lead author of IPCC SREX report, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And the topic of that report is managing the risk of extreme events and disasters to advance climate change adaptation. He was also senior advisor to Climate and Development Knowledge Network, CDKN, and disaster risk reduction. Sir, we are very happy that you are with us today. In fact, I think we are meeting after around three years, right, sir? Because 2018, I think we have met. Okay. So on behalf of this forum, Social Workers in DRR, we would like to warmly welcome you, sir. Good evening. Secondly, we have Dr. I. Varghese. Sir is the General Secretary of Kerala Association for Professional Social Worker. He is also Associate General Secretary India Network of Professional Social Workers Association. At the same time, he is also the HOD, Head of Department of Social Work, BCM College, Kottayam. And to his credit, he also have 2 PhDs. And I know sir very personally. We have worked together. I think it was around 5 years back. It was a KSDMA awareness program. So BCM College, under his leadership, we have organized many street plays. I mean, in around, I think 2 or 3 districts. So, sir, on behalf of this forum, I would like to welcome you to this program. And I also would like to welcome all the members of our SW DRR groups. Thank you. Over to Joe.
Thank you, Ramesh. Now we would be moving ahead with the main session of this evening. Sir, this, as you are aware, this forum is formed just last month, 2022 January, with the objective of having a collective of social workers in disaster risk reduction who are either studying their social work or their teaching faculties or practitioners, or even working with the government and other NGOs. In fact, we have 2 WhatsApp groups of a little less than 300 members. And we had launched this program last month, as I had informed you. And today, the topic which has been announced is about working with the communities, which is the major focus of social workers across the globe. And we are very happy to have in our midst Dr. Mihir Bhatt, who is the director of ADMI, with whom we have worked quite closely with KSDMA also for the virtual cadre program. And we have found it very worthwhile to work with ADMI, and the extensive experience that you have in India. In fact, all the NDMA and NIDM announcements of various conferences and trainings, we have your picture there as a speaker. So it's our privilege to have you in our midst this evening. Without taking much time, I request you to go ahead with your your talk, and in between, as time goes, we can have a discussion and interaction. It is a very informal session, and anyone from the participants also can chat and raise your questions to Dr. Mihir Bhatt. He is a very busy person, and he was very kind enough to accept our invitation to talk with us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Joe and Ramesh ji and Varghese ji, for inviting me to this gathering of social workers, students and experts and faculty and practitioners, 300 of them. And that's a very big force. There are 2 instances in history where 300 people changed the course of world history. I will not give the answer, but you may look it up and see when that has happened. But it has happened where only 300 people changed the entire course of history, world history. So it's a good number. I've been asked to talk about social workers in disaster risk reduction, focus on enhancing community resilience as key to disaster risk reduction. And as you know, I couldn't say no. I'm very much here, not only because Kerala has a very special place in my heart, but also because DRR work in India. There is a lot that Kerala has done, and especially towards equity and linking it with development. And from that point of view, I found this very attractive invitation, and I accepted that. I thought I would do my presentation in 2 parts. And first, I will talk about a bit of a background, what I've done and how I look at things, etc. and then something about my experience in Kerala, and then social workers as practitioners, students, etc. What are the things that they can possibly add to the DRR sector that only they can add? And then what are some of the challenges? So that's how I've prepared. And of course, you can ask questions in between. And if I don't notice, George, if I can request you to stop me and ask the question.
Yes, sir.
So the first is, all been very curious about All India Disaster Mitigation Institute and the small little turtle, which is the symbol. And the AIDMI came into being in 1994, 95. But the work had started far before that. And there was a repeat drought in 87, 88, 89. And in 89, I was invited to have a one-man commission to look at what was the impact of drought on the development process of Gujarat. And it was tremendous. For example, the migration from one part of the state to other was almost 1/4 of the population, and 2/3 of the animal population had migrated to different places within the state and all the way further down to Maharashtra. The saplings that the forestry department had planted, which would generally be in a year's time 12 inches, had actually become only 6 or 7 inches, and so on and so forth. The whole development process had slowed down or stopped. And I was very curious that how come nobody thought about drought in any of the development activities. They all assumed that the development plans, programs, projects will move on without any disasters to stop them. And the fact remains that during that period, every 3rd year was a drought and every 5th year was a flood. And so they should have assumed that this is what is going to happen. So that made me think about disasters from a development point of view. And I started raising issues around that. We had a first small project to look at the development disaster linkage. And that was by, at that time, Oxfam's Joel Jaffe was a global chair. And it was a small amount, 2,000 pounds or something, even smaller perhaps. And we looked at this link the next year. Then there was some more requests, and there was some more work. And by the time we realized, 1 or 2 projects became a whole program of disaster risk mitigation. And then we thought we can't run a program without a structure. So we had an institute, All India Disaster Mitigation Institute, and we call it All India because what we were doing was common to all of India. And also at that time, there was a lot of focus on relief, but not on mitigation of the risk. And so we put it mitigation. And we call it institute and not an organization because we saw that there was a lack of learning, lack of reflection by the practitioners and academics and policymakers, all of them. So we thought we would have a people's institute, if you will, which reflects on what has happened on the ground and which puts whatever is policy making, anticipating, puts that on the concrete reality. And that's how action and learning, action and reflection work started. That was also the time, sadly, Kandla cyclone took place, and we realized that a large number of migrant workers from the tribal areas, and some of them from Kerala, had been badly affected and had lost life, but they didn't have any identity card or any proof that they were there, and their family didn't have, so nobody accounted for. And some estimates from BBC put the number as high as 30,000, and some numbers from some of the authorities put it as close as, as low as 2,500, 3,000. Doesn't matter what the actual number is, but people lost life and nobody knew who they were. So that was a great concern after the Kandla cyclone. And then the Gujarat earthquake came place. And then the Orissa cyclone came, which was called super cyclone. And large number of people decided to move away, and they decided to see that how Orissa was responding. And that super cyclone, I think, was a early part of a turning point in the way we started looking at disasters. Community became even more central. For example, we started looking beyond relief to reconstruction, rehabilitation, the whole continuum. It was just starting. And then the Gujarat earthquake came. And that turned around Disaster Management Authority, Disaster Management Act, State Authority came into being, state policy. We were very much part of making that at the early stages of that. And Gujarat also had a long tradition, like Kerala. For example, Vallabhbhai Patel had managed a couple of droughts in relation to Gujarat Vidyapith, and some of the money which was given by local well-to-do people. Indulal Yagnik, who was the leftist at that time in Gujarat. This is 40s, before 42, I think, 38, 40. And he decided to work with the tribals and offer them the relief which otherwise wouldn't go to the tribals. They were not even recognized or were part of the consciousness. There was Ravi Shankar Maharaj, who found ways of bringing the whole of Gujarat society together. And at some point, they become so strong that whenever there's a disaster, the chief minister quickly runs to Ravi Shankar Maharaj and tells him that now what do we do? Can you bring people and money? So it was even larger than the state itself, the civil society, and more effective their work was. There was also a tradition of Parab, which is putting drinking water against heat waves outside on the main roads and other junctions. There was dharamshalas, the shelter for extreme events, floods and cyclones. And of course, there was water harvesting structures to mitigate the water need, at least for the drinking purpose, and water storage for the urban areas, called tankas within each house, would store its own rainwater for the whole year. So that's how Vijeshji, the whole idea of traditional disaster risk management, or DRR, sort of was transformed into a new way of looking at, which was institutional, which was structured. I also had the honor to be a part of shaping of Gujarat State Disaster Management Authority in the early meetings and concept and its initial stages. And also GIDM, Gujarat Institute for Disaster Management, came into being, and as AIDMI, we've sat on various committees and various forms that it was taking, including its latest transformation from an institute for the state, which is holding the South Asia Disaster Risk Management Center for the South Asia. I moved from Delhi to there. So there's a lot of things that are happening in Gujarat since then. There was also a civil society which is very vibrant. And because of that, this whole concept of SETU, a coordination and coherence unit, which came up, which was subsequently applied, as you know, in the work that was being done in tsunami and subsequently in many other disasters as well. There was a concept of owner-driven shelter management that came up, and which is now a standard practice, thanks to those experimentations that were going on. Livelihood was not part of relief rehabilitation, and now that is. So those are the changes that have taken place in Gujarat since the earthquake. And last but I'd like to add in the background is that how is community resilience important in DRR? And from the Gujarat experience, we realized that this whole effort is like a pyramid, and pyramid is as strong as its base that we have, and that base is the community. So stronger the community and more developed the community, less likely it is to collapse this whole pyramid. And we've seen that in Kerala as well. You must have seen it even better, that because of the high level of development, education, health, organized unions, etc., the impact of such a devastating disaster was relatively less than it would have been in any of the other states of India. So that way, Syria, the whole community resilience becomes very important, either from the humanitarian action point of view, or from the point of view of disaster risk reduction, or from the point of view of climate change and adaptation point of view. So that's the background, and that's the kind of place, position that I'm coming from. And I'd like to take you to my experience in working in Kerala during floods, some work that we've done with the authority, but also before that. And it's a very long-standing work that I have done, small pieces, but I have always enjoyed it, Rameshji. And we have worked with the rubber plantation workers and had them organize their saving groups, somewhere around 97, 98. We have worked with the Fisheries Union and how can they have cooperatives which will work better in terms of distribution of the income from the fisheries and introduction of new boats. We have worked with housing and shelter work that Laurie Baker was doing, and subsequently Shankar is so well doing, and learning from that. We have also worked with John Samuel, for example, and Keela, both institute in terms of local governance, budget analysis, etc. There are women's group, both weavers and others, and there are unions of that all across Kerala, very active, very vocal, and we've had the great pleasure to work with them during and between the two disasters. Also district authorities, there was a large UNDP project which happened across the country, and one of the important district was at that time Cochin, and the district authority we worked with at that time to introduce DRM, disaster risk management program, and within that community-based approaches that were taken up. I forget the name of the extremely bright and supportive collector who was there at the time, and we worked and enjoyed them. We worked with the Jewish schools in Cochin and how the schools can play an active role in developing not only response, but relief, rehabilitation, curriculum mainstreaming, etc. With the Catholic educational campuses across Kerala, we've been from time to time introducing cash for work. We've been introducing the whole idea of women-centered risk reduction, for example, or the idea how do you work with the migrants who come to Kerala to work, and when they are going back, what kind of support that they need if they have to go back during the crisis. So that sort of different windows, we've seen the work that is happening in Kerala, and all of that has been very rewarding. We've also seen the work Amrutanand Mai has done with the university after tsunami and the introduction of new courses at that. There was introduction of new departments, new method of addressing resilience, which was at that time was more part of the recovery and not articulated as resilience, and ILO and then were closely working together to build back better as a concept, and large number of students and faculty directly being engaged with fishermen and women. And of course, recently the Muslim business houses all across Kerala and how they have turned around and played a very important role in influencing the media in Kerala to be more positive about what recovery and rehabilitation is taking place, but also looking at real estate in Kerala and how it can be built to withstand cyclone and floods and any other possible landslide-related disasters that this has. So, Ramesh, this is a long back and forth involvement, and some of the three most important and most recent one is we were asked by the UN to look at the Kerala experience as one of the examples, not only for India, but what is it that we learn from Kerala, which should be learned in other countries in the south, such as Vietnam, such as Cambodia, such as Indonesia, for example. And that study was done, and the findings there were decentralization, which is not new to Kerala, but is a very new and different way of working for most disaster management authorities, which are very top-down and centralized. There was the idea of local planning, and again, not new for Kerala, but large number of disaster management authorities have central plan and only sectoral allocations are done. So these are the kind of findings which are now being put into practice in other countries. So in that way, our work in Kerala has been a lighthouse to many other states and other countries as well. This also included work in cadre building. And as I'm sure all of you know, that Kerala is the first state to build a cadre for 7+7, roughly 14, I think slightly more because a couple of departments were changed. But in each department, there must be some member who would be central and focal to disaster response, to relief and rehabilitation plan. And that is the only state where this is done for a large number of people within each of the departments. The first round is finished and probably hand-holding, and the second refresher round will be done very soon. So that's the kind of involvement that we have in Kerala. And we think there is a lot to be learned and a lot to be shared with other states and other countries as well. If we had more time as the All India Disaster Mitigation Institute, we should do that. And as I speak, I'm making a note to myself that something more interesting and topical we should do about the recent developments in Kerala that is taking place, including rebuilding Kerala, but a lot more is happening beyond government as well. So that is the engagement with Kerala. And the last part of my presentation before I stop is to tell the students and the academia of social work that how can they be better engaged in enhancing resilience of the communities. And I'm going to take a very different approach to suggest to you than perhaps somebody else who is very much a disaster expert would generally take, or I would generally take. But I'm taking a different approach for a very definite reason, that Kerala has the capacity, because the way the state functions and the history it has, a level of education, level of awareness, professionalism, and skills, to do something which many other states are not capable of doing. So I hope that this is something which Kerala, at least social worker community, will take up as far as DRR is concerned. And one of that is, but I don't, so one thing that I think is overdue and only Kerala social workers can do is the focus on power and knowledge in disaster risk reduction, DRR, on hazards and vulnerability. What has happened, and perhaps you should look up a book which is about to be released by J.C. Gillard, and which is called The Invention of Disaster, that a lot of disaster-related work and concepts, etc., we have invented. And the concept and that reality for us doesn't exist as it is being described. And that's the reason we very often have struggled in describing disaster and various phases of our work in the local language, maybe Malayalam or Gujarati. For example, risk transfer, there is no Gujarati word, there is no Malayalam word as we know as well. For example, resilience also, there are phrases, but no single word can actually express the concept of resilience in Gujarati. The second area where a lot can be done by social workers and faculty in Kerala is lead India to the area of politics of climate change and uncertainty in India. Because we know a lot about risk, but even when there is no risk, there is a lot of uncertainty. And not only, I mean, political or economic, but also a lot of climate-related, hazard-related, disaster-related, crisis-related uncertainty, and people continuously live there, some with that uncertainty and build their life. Somebody called Hans Adam, Laila Mehta, Shilpi Srivastava, they've done a whole new book on that, and that is something that Kerala social work department, students, faculty, and professional can pick up and develop more, because there is a landscape of certain level of development and certain social awareness which will allow the understanding of uncertainty far better than many other states of Gujarat, perhaps. And the third area where social workers can make a major contribution is in supporting how women are building a sustainable future for urban India. And there are a lot of women's group in Kerala. A lot of urban development has taken place in Kerala, which is unique than almost any other state in India. And how the women as construction workers, as house owners, as business owners are shaping urban India. There is a very good, again, a book that Bijal Bhatt and Renana Jabwala have done. And this gives a very good introduction. What sort of pathways we need for urban resilience to move that? So basically there are three areas, and I'm repeating that. One of that is on invention of disaster or power and knowledge around DRR. The second area is about uncertainty. And third area is about women's leadership. So these are the three areas I think will be very interesting and very useful for social workers of Kerala to take forward, because there's a lot of work done, and also a lot of work can be done because of the landscape within which these risks are unfolding. And to sum up, I want to say that what are some of the challenges in achieving the same as what I have just described. And Joe John, there I want to say that I don't see these things as challenges, Joe. These are opportunities. And Kerala has made sure that the 2018 flood turned into an opportunity for a very rapid, well-planned, good economic development of Kerala. And so let us look at what I said above as opportunities. And I would like to mention one, that social work as a profession and academic discipline is moving fast from welfare to protest, to service delivery, to welfare, to protest. And it's not in a circle, it's moving all across zigzag. It is also moving from communities to authorities, to private sector, CSR, and those movements are simultaneously taking place at multi-level. So that's the nature of social work reality. And within that, we must look ahead and not away from the focus on poor and vulnerable. If that's the case, there are two opportunities, which you may call challenges or hindrances, which are important. One is that DRR is in the process of hybridization between Indian and international DRR, because Indian experience of DRR is coming out. There is a difference between that and the international DRR experience, and the social workers and the most suitable to take this up. So they would understand this difference far more better in a constructive manner than perhaps an earthquake specialist or perhaps any other expert on risk reduction. So what I would like to suggest is that the time has come to address foreign or outside DRR models to be indigenized. That how do we indigenize? Virtual cadre is one way, but that's not the only way. There are so many other ways of indigenizing them, dealing with resistance that we encounter, and in the process, and finally, that adaptation to local community context. So this whole sort of co-opting and making DRR, which is locally grown and locally enhancing, and you already have tools for that. Decentralization, local planning, and many other things that you have. This is complex, but the fact remains that if we do that, there will be multiple DRRs, not one way of doing DRR, but multiple DRRs will exist. And they would be different, but simultaneous resilience would take place. So they are different, but they are simultaneously existing disaster risk reduction measures. Now it is up to us, to the social workers, interpret and contextualize disaster risk reduction influences, look at, understand, and shape social relations emerging from the constant and accelerating flux in the style of DRR and its related structures in a resilient world. And I think only Kerala can do that. And if it does that, it would lead a way to make the international concept of DRR far more localized, far more embedded, and most importantly, far more useful and usable for all. I'd like to end that and thank you for this opportunity to me to think about this. I'm very happy to receive any questions, suggestions about what I have said, what I have not said. Feel free.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for the very clear and crisp presentation of how ADMI was initiated in Gujarat, or the context of a series of droughts and other emergencies in the state. We also came to know that prior to the disaster management legislation in 2005, Gujarat, the state of Gujarat had its own state legislation, isn't it, sir? So that is that the context of that was due to the earthquake in 2001. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Then what about the non-government sector in Gujarat? Do you have a kind of a collective or interagency groups, or how do you do convergence between the CSOs and CBOs like that? Do you have a mechanism you would like to hear?
So no, that's a very good question. And as you know, like Kerala, Gujarat has a long tradition of civil society organizations, and there are of various categories. There are civil society organizations which are essentially around educational and knowledge-related activities. Indian Institute of Management or Ahmedabad Education Society is an example of that. And they got actively, directly involved in both relief, rehabilitation, and subsequent recovery part of it. So that's sort of a one tradition which continues. Then there is a tradition of what we would call interagency or international NGOs. And they had all got together, but under a leadership of a local organization, such as Kutch Now Nirman Abhiyan and other organizations which are local to Kutch. And they came together to respond to the immediate relief and rehabilitation part. And subsequently, they got dissolved, that whole platform, and it moved from district level to the state level. For each disaster, there has been a different formations that have come. Sometimes Gandhian organizations have come together and formed a common front. Recently and very happily, we see that more progressive organizations that work with minorities and Dalits and others, and they came together during the last cyclone, and they did a very interesting work that instead of providing relief and rehabilitation, they used their money to follow the government assessment team and see that nobody gets left out. Obviously, government didn't want to leave out on purpose. And so as a result, something which would have been roughly around 22, 28 lakh rupees worth of relief actually turned out to be 2 crore rupees worth of relief, because somebody was bringing that old woman all the way to the office to get her claim done. Somebody was bringing the Dalits who had lost the crop, make an estimate, will help you do that and do that. So that was a very good example where civil society played a very different role. Most recently, under the leadership of course, an organization called Unnati and others, the interagency group is being formed, and which would be a more like a structure that we are aware of in the recent 10 years in other states. But the beauty of this interagency group is that it has not grown from top down, but it has evolved from Gujarat experience and has a nice name. They are going to announce it, so I'm not announcing it on their behalf. But and also they've taken up the activities rather differently. So the focus from delivery of services to has been moved to linking to the services that the government and private houses are going to provide. The focus has moved from specific standards to the user satisfaction. That is not that I won't make sure that you got 2 liters of your water, but make sure that are you satisfied with water that you received. So they are making such very, very clear and very important departures in the interagency work that is happening. So yes, that's the background of civil society organizations changing different roles in Gujarat.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else has a question, please? You can unmute and ask directly. No problem.
Mihirji, I just want to, sir, you know that we are talking about this community resilience. So today's banner is also there, enhancing community resilience to DRR. So when we implement this community DRR in an urban settings, so is there any separate model or something different which AIDMA is implementing at your place or maybe in other states or districts, because you have worked across India and even internationally. So how do you see it? Because CBDRR in urban setting is something challenging, it's a difficult things, whereas in rural setting it's comparatively easy because we have implemented CBDRM in many villages, even with the support of KSDM, we have implemented the same program at Bullaperiyar dam area, around 48 wards we have covered. But when we implement or when we introduce this concept in the urban settings, the participation of people is comparatively less, as you know. So whether your organization is implementing this CBDRM in an urban context, and what are the models which you are following? So can you just
Sure.
Your
So Vijay, you would also be very happy to know that one of the things we did was with the pandemic in Ahmedabad city. And we entered as you said, it was difficult to organize the community participation in urban area. So we took up the schools, and then nobody will question, and everybody agreed that that's an important area. And through the schools and children, we reached out to the parents who lived in the low-income areas to get their involvement in the pandemic-related mitigation, but also preparedness measures. So that was one way which worked in Ahmedabad, that was supported by UNICEF to see that how schools, and we took up first only 10 schools and roughly 600 students, but then those 10 schools started functioning and performing. So large number of other schools. So in the end, by the time we finished the project, more than 60 schools from the city of Ahmedabad got involved in that. So that's the one model that is worth looking at. The other model is related to the heat wave planning. And there was a direct coordination with and this was during the CDKN period, with the municipal authority. There is Dr. Malvalkar is running this excellent health institute, and they were involved in a large number of other local organizations. And that was another model that you have the meteorological department, you have the health expert, and you have the city authority, the municipal corporation. And Rameshji, maybe TMC can do that. And that was the second model. So I think we need to invent different models for different types of needs or different cities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I was wondering if there was any question by Haidariji, if you had Rajendran, Janine, your experience, which I said, does it ring any bell to you? Or Clint, if you have any suggestions or observations on what is explained?
Yeah, please feel free to ask Mir sir. He has been visiting Kerala quite often, but of late we are not seeing him, maybe due to COVID.
Absolutely.
I think, yeah, your visit is due now.
Absolutely.
Any other question?
We are planning some, we've already finished some work from here, but when I visit, we'll talk about that. But we have taken up a very interesting work to see that what is it that happened in Kerala which hasn't happened in any of the other, in the last 10 years, any of the other disasters. So what is unique that happened and what can be learned? So we make a list and then immediately some states say that, no, we've done it. So that the list becomes shorter, but still there are 7, 8 things that Kerala has done, which are unique and can be taken to other. So it's not unique to the state itself, but it's unique and therefore can be taken to, because a lot of state to state learning there's a tremendous scope. And I think there is not enough effort put into that. So, for example, the states in the Northeast, and there's almost a regional cluster there, and Assam government and Assam Disaster Management Authority can almost become a regional, Northeast regional authority to sort of bring this experience, that sort of lateral learning together. So I can see that in the South India with Kerala doing it. So for that purpose, we are doing it. Thank you.
That's quite interesting that maybe ADMI is looking at documenting the good practices which are unique in the state, right?
Unique.
Yeah. So we would be interested to know where we stand.
We will share, yeah. So when we've done, we are planning to come to Kerala and Trivandrum and share it.
Sure. So thank you very much, sir. I think no other questions as of now. And,
sure. And feel free to be in touch, any one of you. Please get my email from Joe or Ramesh of FDA, or Vijay, you can share. And I will take 1 or at the most 2 days to respond, but definitely any information, material, any very often I get requests for courses on DRR to be done in a professional or international universities, and feel free for that information.
In fact, some of our colleagues have done internship in ADMI. They were working with us as LSGDM coordinators also.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Mr. Ashwin, who was working in Kannur, was doing an internship in ADMI. So thank you, sir.
Be
once
again. Be in touch.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate your presence.
Thank you, Mihirji. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you.
So let me have a
yes.
Okay, Mihirji. Very good evening. So we have an official word of thanks from my side. So first of all, a very good evening to all, and on behalf of our organizing committee, I would like to express our gratitude to all, one and all, for your presence and contribution to make this session, even if it is a very small one, but it's very successful. And I extend my special gratitude to Dr. Mihir Arbhat, Director, All India Disaster Mitigation Institute, for the technical session. It's always great to hear you, sir. Thank you, Mihirji, for encouraging us with your technical inputs. And a very special thanks to Dr. Varghese, General Secretary CAMS, for the special note, special note address and for providing continuous support to our initiative and continuous support to make this our initiative a very successful one. And a very special thanks to our organizers like Dr. George for moderating this session, and a very special thanks to Mr. Ramesh Krishnan for coordinating the event. So I must thank each and every member of this group, our social workers in DRR group. Thank you everyone once again for your time, precious time and presence. Thank you all.
Vijesh has proposed vote of thanks since Mihirji would be leaving now, but Dr. Raip would be speaking regarding the CAPS. So Mihirji, thank you once again.
Thank you so much, and Dr.
feel free.
Varghese, my very best wishes to you. Vijesh, thank you so much. Good to meet you. Bye.
Feel free to stay on. We are just making you comfortable. And,
okay.
Okay. Dr. Raip,
actually, Joe, I joined very late. That's why I thought the second session was already done. So sorry for that.
It's okay. That's fine. So Dr. Raip Varghese is there with us this evening. As announced by Ramesh, he is the General Secretary of Kerala Association of Professional Social Workers in the state. So we are very privileged to have him in our midst today. I request Dr. Raip Varghese to share a few words, especially with respect to CAPS and how, of course, the students, the participants are less. However, we would like to hear from you, and perhaps in the coming months or so, we may need to know more about CAPS and the work that CAPS has been doing in Kerala. Over to Dr. Raip.
Okay, thank you, George, and the respected Mihir Bhatt sir, Ramesh, and Vijesh. First of all, it's a good initiative that, normally people speak about disaster only when the disaster occurs. And that's the sad part of every disaster. And during that time, we do our level best and then forget. Actually, it's not kept as an ongoing activity. So that's why most of the disasters become, more dangerous, and it cost a lot to the society. Now, as far as CAPS is concerned, and I will just take a few minutes only in relation to this disaster. Some of the activities that CAPS has undertaken or CAPS has involved, especially during the disasters, was in 2018, the flood, and especially the 2022 landslide, 2021 last year, which happened in the Idukki district. So these are the two. And if you consider this COVID pandemic also, because the Disaster Management Authority considers and treat this COVID also as a main disaster. So CAPS has fully engaged in this one also. Now, during this 2018 flood situation, of course, we could do a lot as social workers and as a network. I can tell you, in Kottayam itself, we have operated in the disaster management office in the collectorate on a 24 hours basis for a few days, at least for a week. And the people were telling they have managed 900 calls. And when I say 900 calls, it is 900 lives. That's it. And the whole thing was networking, allocation of resources, and addressing to the emergencies. All these things were undertaken by the social workers, and to the best possible way. And they were highly, appreciated in their effort also. And in 2021, especially in the disaster in Idukki and the Kottayam district, in the Kootikal area. So there also we could do much better in the sense, even one step ahead, like going into some research works, the studies, assessments. All these things were done by the social workers. Now, what I feel that the social workers should look at as individually and at organization level also, or institution level also, to some kind of advocacy also. Because, if you happen to be in the areas like Kutikal and all, and if it's during a rainy season, it's very difficult. And you will see that many of the places, majority of the houses that is in the hilly areas need to be replaced. They have to be rehabilitated. If they continue to stay there, we cannot predict, we cannot assure their safety. And we always, as I have said in the beginning, we always work only when the disaster occurs. And during all this disaster, especially during 2018, we were involved in, the public education and informing the people, giving training to a lot of people. All those things were undertaken by Kerala Association of Professional Social Support to victims, that is during the disaster, and now also it is still going on. And even the CAPS was recognized by the UNICEF for undertaking a large-scale research throughout the state, especially to hear the voice of children. Of course, finally that project did not, take up, but means at least up to 25 to 30% work was done. But later on, some other problems came up and we could not do that. But even for that also, we had arranged different training programs in different regions of our state and made the people equipped with dealing with all those things. How to address the issues of children during the disaster. That was one of the main and important initiatives undertaken by Kerala Association of Professions of Social. So whether it is for prevention, whether it is for risk reduction or capacity building, and maybe responding promptly and assessing the magnitude of the danger that has happened, or all these areas can be addressed properly scientifically by social workers. And as far as CAPS is concerned, let me tell you something about CAPS. It's an organization established in the year 2012. Now this is the 10th year of CAPS. And during this 10 year, and we could feel the presence of social workers, especially as a group, as an association in state of Kerala. We have district chapters in all the districts. We have life membership, we have student membership, and we have associate membership for many people from outside Kerala and even from outside India. They want to work with CAPS. So, but since we cannot give direct life membership to them, we have decided to allow them to associate with CAPS. So that associate membership also recently we have started. And before starting itself, many people have applied for that. So people have a faith on CAPS, and they feel that some of the responsibilities that an association should undertake, especially for social workers, that is being met by CAPS. And one of the main things is a continued training. We as social workers need to undergo training. We need to update. Many times what we see is that the learning that has happened, or the training we have undergone for 2 years for the MSW program, that is the beginning and that is the end of our education related to social work. It should not happen. It should not be like that. We need to engage continuously. As long as we remain as social workers, we need to engage in the training. We need to undergo. We should be participating in training, and we should be involved in providing knowledge to others through the association. That is also very important. Many people have the skills, many people have the knowledge in different specialized areas. They should come forward and be a part of this association, and so that let us grow together and let us strengthen others. That is very important. And we have student membership in CAPS. Student membership in the sense that is the beginning of life membership. Once you take a student membership and once you pass out from the student period, you can convert this membership into life membership by paying the remaining part of the registration fees. That means the fees you have paid in the beginning as a student member to become a student member, that is not going waste. That is the initial, payment. So all these are there, and we, of course, even our students' representatives, they are becoming the member of the board. That's the international style. That is, even if you go to UK and all, you can see the students are the members in the director board. So in our governing body also, we maintain the same status. We have students forum, and since 2015, we organize a student congress. That's a meeting together of students platform. And this year it is happening next week in Kannur and Don Bosco College. So we are all preparing for that meeting. And we have practitioners meeting. If there are, at least we organize webinars nowadays every week, where people can come and take class, people can attend the classes. So all these are for the benefit of social workers. We have many more things, and of course that can be shared maybe at a later stage, as Joe has intimated. Since this particular session is for an hour only, it is good to stick on to the time so that people don't get bored, and yeah, they will have a feeling to join for the next meeting also. So thank you for this wonderful session, and it was nice hearing to Mihir Bhatt sir, a person with international experiences and exposure. Good that we could meet you, sir. Thank you so much, and we will meet again later.
Thank you, Dr. Raib. It was a very good introduction about CAPS, and those who are attending might consider to become a member and all those things as they like. And definitely we will also look forward for various collaboration with CAPS in conducting conferences and meetings on disaster risk reduction in the days ahead. And also interested to know more about the contribution that CAPS has made in the recent 2021 floods, because we are also studying the social sector interventions and issues of 2021 floods in Kutikal and Kokkayar and all that. And draft report is almost ready. KSDMA and UNICEF and Sphere India are jointly doing that. It would be released very soon, so we will also share that. So the idea of coming together is only to converge and synergize, so that it would be beneficial for the social workers and communities at large on disaster risk reduction. So that's all from our side. If anyone else would like to add or reflect or any queries, we'll wait for a second. Okay, Vijisha has already proposed vote of thanks. So I am on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank our eminent speakers for tonight, Dr. Mihir Bhatt and Dr. Aip Varghese, who has kept their time and delivered very relevant and critical points from both of them, especially Dr. Mihir Bhatt, who has shared from his wide experience working in Gujarat, in India, and even in many other countries. So thank you, sir, once again. Good night.